the reasons you would acquire is, to save brain damage, to learn from the prior owners, mistakes and successes also. They know what works, they know what doesn't work, and if you can get that training and that leadership of 3, 4, 5, 10 years worth of mistakes, and you can get that all, if they agree to stay on for 3 months or 6 months, if you can get all that in 3 or 6 months, man, that's huge. You just save 10 years worth of learning, you piled it all into 3 or 6 months. If you could do that, just think about it, if you could do that over and over and over and over.
The Move Entrepreneur Evolved Podcast. Get on it. All right, we're back with the Moved Entrepreneur Evolved Podcast, and we have our new guest today, Michael Byars with Acquisitionpreneur. Super stoked to have you on, man. How you doing?
Great, man. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good.
Great to be here.
It is. It's really good to be here, man. I look forward to hearing about your story. And I also like to hear a little bit about acquisitions, because there's many ways to acquiring customers, right? Absolutely. But I'm going to dive right in because it's not really fun to just talk about that right away. You just said something offline. Talk about acquisition, right? Somebody's acquiring either a placeholder or applying it. We were just talking about ESPN, just talking about crypto.com being on the Staples Center. How crazy is that?
Right. That's insane, man. Where crypto.com is buying that value of being able to be out there and be seen, in a public facing on the side of a building, and the Staples Center has always been, a staple in sports, right? So, them taking over that specific center is huge for them also, I believe.
I think that it's easy to say that LA is kind of the energy of what it's basically saying, is to say, hey, you're bringing it to, I think YouTube's done a phenomenal job taking down celebrity status, but I definitely say the world of stars lays in Los Angeles. And if you're going to put crypto.com on there, man, we're at the next level. Do you follow much of crypto yourself? Do you follow crypto yourself? Is that something that you follow, or you stay in?
No, sir. I just kind of stay in my lane. I know what works for me. At the end of the day, crypto is good for a lot of people, but for me, it's just, I know what I'm good at, and I just try to do that. I can bet on myself versus betting on the stock market or crypto or any of that stuff. It always seems to work out, right?
That brings up a really good piece, and like I always do, I always try to kind of go back and kind of do a little bit of stuff. And the very first thing that you posted, and I always sound like a stalker when I do this, but at the end of the day, you had made a statement on here. I thought it was pretty interesting. It says, if you've forgotten you're a CEO of your life, you decided who you hire, fire, or promote on a personal level every day. Invest more time, money, effort in developing your skills, and it will pay off. What was one difficult thing for you will become second nature in time. I think that was a really good statement. And I think that we're in a world now where what we just kind of talked about, maybe you can elaborate too on this, is that we just talked about an investment into a building for crypto. And maybe you can elaborate a little bit of what you feel that kind of is the same thing as us as humans, right? Basically investing in ourselves.
Right, for sure. So, they're investing that money for the signage and the name change to try to put themselves out there so the world knows who they are. I think that's super important for you as a person to try to, invest back in yourself, whether it be education, whether it be going to masterminds, listen to podcasts, any of that stuff. Invest in yourself, because that will grow your confidence and help you be able to get out there. And, at the end of the day, if people don't know who you are, they don't know who to write the check to, right? So that's super important, in my opinion, for you to invest back in yourself and invest back into your brand, your team, your business.
Acquisition, what got you into acquisition? And maybe a little bit of a deep dive into many paths You don't go, I don't know, maybe you did, but going in from out of college or out of high school, you don't say I'm going into acquisition. So maybe you can give a little background on what took you into that field.
For sure. So when I was in, I started out, I grew up in a small little town in South Carolina, about 12,000 people. Did pretty good in school, got an academic scholarship going to Clemson University over here. Stayed there for about a year and a half. During that time, I started a small little tech support company, which ended up working out all right for me. I decided I was going to quit college and continue on down that path. I started, after I got out of college or dropped out of college, I bought a restaurant, worked in it, day and night trying to build it. We started out, it was not very good, but it was kind of putting the pieces back together, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I ended up about 8 to 10x in that business, ended up selling it about 8 years later. As soon as I sold it, I bought another restaurant, did the same thing, but instead of it taking me 8 years to get it built up, I did the same process, and I ended up selling it about 16 months later for about 8x of what I had invested in it. So I take that money. The tech support company is still doing well. Now I still have the tech support company 21 years later. So we started out from a few point of sales in Clemson, South Carolina, to now we manage over 10,000 endpoints in the field. So it grew pretty good. I got into the real estate space. So I started buying single family homes, B to C class value add stuff we could go in there and buy cheap and, add $5,000 to $10,000 worth of rehab to it, rent it out for $700 to $1,200 a month normally. I've got about 165 of those now at this point. But as I bought those, I saw the need for a property management company. So I started.
I'm gonna slow down your resume because you're crushing it, and I'm gonna make you go back a little bit. All right, if that's cool.
Okay. Sure.
So I dig it, man. So what I think would be such value would be I acquired a company before myself. And I remember going through that acquisition, and there was a position, is it worth it or am I overpaying? And I remember just kind of thinking, I got to really think about what am I going to do with this after the acquisition? And it can't be what it is, right? At any level, more or less. So maybe you could share a little bit about what those steps were like as a juvenile, I guess, in this sport that you decided to play.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when I first got in, we don't buy anything. Then I had a good guy that was helping me along and teaching me the ropes in the restaurant business and teaching me a lot of stuff in just general business. So, as I bought the restaurant, we did like an earn out. So he had to stay on for a while till I got accustomed to what I was doing. But I was smart enough to pick up on the stuff he was telling me and also elaborate on it and build on that, and that was huge for me. It's just being able to kind of get a little bit of coaching, a little bit of molding, for lack of better terms, to kind of go forward with that, kind of like a mentorship, but without that, the road, and without buying the business, if I'd had to start it, the road would have been much longer and much more bumpier. When we buy a business, we're buying into their systems, operations, processes, everything that they've already got established. And a lot of times they've taken those bumps on the head, and we're learning from that. We're just buying time. That's all we're doing.
I think that's a really good statement, what you just said. You're buying time. And I think that the statement would be, or would you say it's ego that gets in in front of people,
Absolutely.
basically saying,
Absolutely.
look, I can build what Bobby Joe's, Sloppy Joe's restaurant's doing, or I can build whatever business I'm doing, and I'm smart enough. And I remember in my own experience, I ran into that. I had started my first business. And as I was rolling through that, I remember just going, I don't understand those pieces of the puzzle. And then once I actually got an opportunity to acquire a larger company that had the same structure, I plugged and played. And then it was almost like there was a different energy.
Right. Right. It's like, you know.
And then you
So,
go in and you take that same fine-tooth comb that you did when you were thinking about acquiring, and all of that energy and brain power goes into, refurbishing
building.
the 62 Camaro or whatever it is that you have.
Right.
So you take the acquisition and you decide to do it in restaurants. And I think that one thing that you just said is you kind of had a mentor. What were some of those things, kind of looking back, that were vital to that kind of transition of your being a student and a mentor? Was he a partner of yours, or was he more or less a guide?
He was a partner to some extent, business partner. Without that guidance, it would have took me much longer to be able to have learned on my own versus, him being able to tell me, "Ooh, I did this one time and it did not work. You do not want to do that."
Yeah. Now in acquisition, we just kind of focused on the starting of it, but that's when your wheels started, right? So you had yourself a nice little cash egg, and then that's when you kind of made some financial decisions. Interesting enough, you went back to the same formula. Did you try to apply the same tactics and they didn't work?
I did.
The same? Or they did?
I applied the same, systems and processes that I had built over the first 8-year stint to be able to grow that other one almost instantaneously. I mean, it was crazy. We bought it. It was doing $3,000 to $4,000 a week. When I sold it, we were doing somewhere between $40,000 to $60,000 a week.
That's a crypto return, they would call that.
I don't know about crypto. I know it was good though.
I'm not a crypto guy either, but I think when we saw it on the Staples Center, it kind of shocked us, right?
Make you wake up and think about it, won't it?
Made you think about it. So you go into restaurants, and in the restaurant business, I've had friends that own restaurant business. It takes a special person to own a restaurant business.
Definitely does.
So
I won't ever have another one, I promise.
I saw you cut your teeth, right?
Yeah. It's just too time intensive.
Yeah. When you were doing that, when you had the second restaurant, did you find yourself did you go off on your own, or did you find another person to partner up with? Because I found restaurants, people do really well with partners just due to the fact of shift change.
It was the same guy.
Oh, blessed.
Yeah. So
you moved from restaurant, and now you sold those restaurants, and then you moved on, decided to do IT, and then you decided to lock that in. Between those two, when you went from restaurant to IT, that's a bit of a difference.
Well, I've had the IT since I was 19.
That's right. Sorry,
So,
flipped them. So you kept the IT and the restaurants going.
Yep.
So I think that opens up a management question. How did you fumble through those?
Man, it was just a lot of long hours, long days, 7 days a week for, 16, 18 hours a day for years.
Wow.
Years. It was just, when I first started in the restaurant business, I didn't have anything. So I didn't have any choice except to, go to work. And at the end of the day, I just outworked a lot of them, a lot of other people.
And you found yourself just basically having to just inch it forward a little bit each day. Maybe that would be kind of what happened. So you make a change, and you decide to kind of move through, and you started by are these single family homes that you decided to do?
Yes. Yep. Single family.
And then what was the formula transition for that? Did you find a mentor as well and find someone that helped you kind of cut your teeth on that? Or did you feel like you had enough capital to kind of fundamentally give it a shot?
No, I felt like I had enough capital saved away to where, I could go to work. And if I made a few mistakes, I could still outrun it, you know, which is, why we opened the property management company. I had my houses with a different property management company, but I seen, what I was paying those guys. I opened a property management company, but then when I opened the property management company, I bought up a lot of little stuff around that property management. So, we look at our yearly invoices at the end of the year, every year, and we go back and we try to acquire something in that space that we're spending a lot of money on. Because, we don't just manage for me, we manage for other clients also.
That was interesting. So this is good information as someone that's, you're running multiple businesses, and you're basically saying every year you sit down in your processes, we look at every invoice.
Yep. We look at where we spend the money, like 2 years ago, we were spending our main cost in the 2 years before was plumbing. So we went out and acquired part of a plumbing company.
Got it.
So, same with HVAC, we acquired part of the HVAC company last year. Just because, at the end of the day, we're already spending money in that field. I've got a general contractor's license. So it makes sense to buy those bolt-ons.
What's your hobbies?
Work, reading.
Reading's your hobby. What are you reading?
Anything to do with business. I love it, man.
That's fantastic. I can tell.
It's not, now it's not about the money, it's about the thrill of the chase for me. When is the next deal? When can we do the next deal? What can we uncover and due diligence before the deal? How can we protect us or our clients?
I'm going to kind of say, I get a lot of people on the podcast and talk about a lot of stuff and do those things. And it's, you have a championship story. I'd like to hear one of the ones that went, you know what, this ain't going to work. Where was there a point in a transaction or those that you said, I don't know what to do, and you kind of were stumped for yourself? Because it sounds, and don't get me wrong, it's because you've done well for yourself. I definitely am not pulling any of that away from you.
Absolutely.
I
We've all had failures if we've done well.
What maybe in one of these, maybe you could share.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess probably 6 years ago, we another bolt-on, we decided to buy, we were doing a lot of development, decided to buy a concrete company, which, we were using a lot of. Same concept, go back, hey, what do we spend a lot of money on? Spend a lot of money on concrete company. So I go purchase a concrete company. Still me being, young-minded at that time, I guess you would say in that sort of business, concrete companies are dependent on the laborers and, the crew leaders, and it's dependent on them to do it right every time. That whole marketplace of people and employees is tough, man. Those guys come in drunk about 8 days a week. They come in late. They don't want to work late, and with concrete, you get one shot to get it right because it's hard, right? Mm-hmm. It gets hard, and it's not like you can change it or do anything else with it. I was having a ton of problems with employees, ton of problems with, people just not doing what they were supposed to do. Couldn't get people to show up on time. We'd have concrete come in, we'd have 3 people there when we needed 6. And it just was a nightmare. After about probably 14 or 15 months of that, we scrapped it all. It's easier for me and less brain damage, to just hire it back out again. It's one of those things that we tried, it didn't work. That's not for me. Next. You can't get bogged down in the losses, because if you do, you won't allow yourself to, you got to allow yourself to make mistakes in order to learn, right? As long as you learn from it, it's not a mistake. It's just a lesson.
Yeah. And I think that one thing that I'm also catching from you, which I think is very cool, is you almost create an incubator for it.
Yep.
You have it prepared that even as I'm talking with you, you're like, hey, as I move forward, look over our invoice at the end of this year, who knows, maybe I'm acquiring a different company.
Right.
And then in that, when you acquire that, what are some of the things that you look for when you acquire a business?
You know, most of the time, you know, we do a ton of due diligence, ton of upfront work, a ton, you know, and we found that, you know, it's just better that way because you don't get caught in a trap, right? You know, we just now looked at a deal that we were just about to do in the healthcare space, and we did probably, I'd say 6 to 8 months worth of due diligence. Probably cost us $120,000 flying around all these places, looking at different stuff. And at the end of the day, we decided to scrap that deal. You know, the due diligence in the front side it means a world of difference.
Yeah, that 124 could have cost you 2 million, and also having to get rid of all the employees. Yeah. So it sounds like, I mean, that really is the formula that you laid out. You basically parlayed, and what would you say are 3 reasons on why you would acquire, or maybe I don't need to say 3, but what would be a real good reason on why you would acquire something, and then why would it be a reason you would not? Because it sounds like what you just said, you know, you found out after. So unfortunately, you're like, those are the ones that you say I shouldn't have, right? And then,
hey, you know, with you know, with like the, you know, the reasons you would acquire is, you know, to save brain damage, to learn from the prior owners, you know, mistakes and successes. Also, you know, they know what works, they know what doesn't work, you know, and if you can get that training and that leadership of 3, 4, 5, 10 years worth of mistakes, and you can get that all, you know, if they agree to stay on for 3 months or 6 months, if you can get all that in 3 or 6 months, man, that's huge. You just save 10 years worth of learning, you piled it all into 3 or 6 months. You know, if you could do that, just think about it, if you could do that over and over and over and over. You know,
now I notice you're doing events now, right?
Yes, sir. We're doing live. We're also doing Zooms.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that. You know, maybe open the door a little bit about is it acquisition management. Maybe you could share with a little bit about what that is all about.
Yeah. So with Acquisitionpreneur, we're doing Zooms. We have a different class or a different group each month. We do 4 live events each year where we teach in person. Just depends on, you know, some people like Zoom, other people rather be there in person. It just depends on how you learn is really the main thing. You know, we teach all of our strategies, you know, why acquisitions, why we'll never do another startup. You know, we teach, you know, the who, the what, the where, the when, the why. You know, why do we want to do these deals? You know, where can we find the deals? You know, we've developed, once again, I'm from the IT side. So we've developed a deal machine on the backside that goes out and finds these off-market deals, kind of like the real estate guys do with.
I was going to ask you, I went to one of those Dean
Graziosi.
Yeah, I went to his event a while back or whatever, and I was just curious to see his demeanor and how he kind of handled himself, and went and checked that out here in San Diego. And he, that was the formula, right? It was that was what you just said. I went, I've been here before. So, with that, what it is and I'll just kind of give the synopsis from the experience, but basically go in, they give you education, formulated with people that have done it before, and it's subjected to those that are ready for the opportunity right then.
That's it.
And how many have you done of these? And they're wrapped around business acquisition. Maybe you buy like, maybe I'm only going to say a Subway or something like that, but whatever, you might buy 9 Subways as an acquisition or something like that.
Right. So, you know, we buy businesses that their revenue is $1 to $5 million, you know, with at least a 25 to 30% profit margin. We'll bring in sales, operations, finance, scale them up in hopes for an exit in 24 to 36 months. You know, we buy, like I said, in that $1 to $5 million range. and we try to exit somewhere in the 10 to $20 million range. So we'll make all the upside there in the middle while we're holding the company, and then hopefully exit, for a decent paycheck.
I think one thing, and you probably can debug this pretty quick, but there is maybe an underlining thing that when large companies and conglomerates like yourself go in and buy businesses, just buying them, that there's an emotional detachment from the community to the owner, right? It starts to become this corporate concept. How have you found to keep that community when just acquiring businesses is a number game? I remember I used to have a thing called the Penny Saver out here. I don't know how far they went out, but it was pretty large here in California. And someone had worked for me for a while and kind of was moonlighting with me and doing some work with me. And I remember one day she just called me up and she said, my 25-year job is, the doors are just shut. And they got acquired by a company in New York that just flattened them out. And I remember hearing that and I'm like, well, that's not every situation, but I know that probably is a part of the ebb and flow of the way the deal is done is where I'm getting at. So how do you kind of get around from that so that you can kind of make sure that, grandma still likes going to get cookies from someone they know?
That's right, for sure. So, we only buy stuff that we know we can add value to. We're not trying to buy anything to close it. That's some of the bigger companies' strategies. That's just not us. We want to buy something that is already performing well, that we see where, maybe we can tweak this knob over here, or change something over here, or do this over there, or maybe add a little operational capital to it to be able to expand. We like stuff that we can go in and fix. It's not that we don't want something that's failing. We don't do turnarounds at all. It's got to be profitable, but we only buy stuff that we know we can fix, and grow, I guess, not just fix, but stuff that we know we can add value to.
I use this analogy a lot in my program that I run, and I say that it's kind of like Super Mario Kart when you get with either a good coach, or you buy a business, or you get a new framework, and it's almost like when you start. I use Super Mario because who's going to mess that up? But when you kind of take off, and when you hit the arrow,
yep,
and it just literally just takes you off. And that's kind of what happens. And then all of a sudden it kind of slows down, kind of like motivation compared to actual determining to get it. But you really get that bolt of either energy and if you are acquiring, are you leaving the owner in by a percentage, or are you acquiring restaffing?
If the owner's ready to go, if they're ready to sell off into the sunset, we try to promote the number two. We're not like some of these guys that come in there and want to just gut the whole business and start over. And we want to promote from within. Those guys know where the bodies are buried. They know what the problems are. If we can take them and they're hungry, and we can mold them and give them some better systems, operations, and processes, we really think that we can build something great.
Now, with these events that you do, I had noticed you on Facebook. I noticed you kind of just started getting into the thing of Facebook and really, I don't want to use the word exposing yourself. That doesn't come out right. But the sense of bringing yourself out and making yourself, like we had said, currency is attention. What was that like? It sounded like you were more in the background of non-social events, and now you've put yourself in front.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've only had a Facebook account for probably a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
I was one of the last Mohicans that held out. Right.
You waited until they actually changed the name by the time you showed up.
I showed up and made them change it, Jason.
I like your style. Acquired it. They acquired a new game. You set it up.
That's it. So, I've always operated good, in the background. I'm super operational and super driven back there. I've never been one to kind of be in the foreground until, we started teaching our methods and stuff like that, and trying to find other operators. We're trying to find other guys just like us that want to go to work, that, want to change their lives and change their families' lives. Right. And it's tough to find those folks, especially, like I told you, I come from a small town of 12,000 people. 3/4 of the people in the town. It's tough to find that outside talent without soliciting for it, I guess you would call it. So I mean, that's the reason that I decided to go ahead and get social media. It's just to try to reach out and find other guys just like us that just wanted to go to work and make some money, change their lives, their families' lives, and their employees' lives.
I think it's really powerful to hear that statement, what you said, because I always say this, there's companies out there that still aren't collecting email addresses, and it's cool to see that people shift at their own pace. And I think people also need to understand that success is not social media. And I think that there's a lot of work that happens outside of it. It's an expression. We do these things to kind of share our stories and get to know people and be able to help people. But I think that it's a cool story that kind of broke through that and being in that. What are some of those things, or I guess the pinnacle would be like, did you find yourself going, I'm not going to expand if I don't make this move, because you were already doing it well? I mean, it's not like you had to add another exposure to yourself. You already had that environment. What was that catalyst for you?
At the end of the day, like you said, I didn't have to expand, with all the rentals and the tech support company and everything. I'm not too bad off, I could pay my bills, but, it, like I told you earlier, it was the thrill of the chase. I felt like that, I didn't have any other good people that wanted to go to work. I couldn't find any other people that enjoyed the same things that I did, business wise, so, and, how do you meet those people? How do you find those people? Going, 0 to 12,000 people, I could put up a billboard in my hometown. But if I want to reach somebody outside of those little walls, you've got to have some sort of other media form or marketing form to get to them. And that's the real reason. Just looking for other guys that are just like me that want to go to work.
Pretty fascinating how you find them, right? I mean, the internet kind of exposes, the fake, but it also helps the good ones that are out there too. I pulled up, I always like to do this. It's kind of fun. And it kind of opened up a little bit in the beginning of our conversation, but I always like to kind of open up some news that's going on. And there was a Insider magazine, I guess it is Insider magazine, but insider.com, Business Insider. And the article was about Scott Galloway. Here are the companies that I predict will get acquired and by whom. And I thought this one was really interesting. I thought I'd just throw this one out here, talking about acquisitions. 3 weeks ago, someone floated the idea of PayPal buying Pinterest. PYPL, which is your stock, plunges 5% the next day. And the company then denied the rumors. Our thesis, PayPal's management leaked the story as a trial balloon and let it float away when the market threw up the notion of PayPal, saying that they're going to change it. What do you think, in your opinion, this article is really about these large companies acquiring? And these numbers are so astronomical in acquisitions that we see as business people. Like, for example, they didn't even put an acquired number or anything like that. And I could only imagine $500 million. What more than that? 5 billion. How do you create value on such a large company like that?
I'm not sure what PayPal's purpose would be in buying Pinterest. I'm sure there's an underlying, an underlying purpose, but, maybe the technology or something like that they're buying, because, you can't monetize Pinterest at this time. So, I'm not sure what their whole thought pattern behind that is, but, with Facebook, where they acquired Instagram and they acquired WhatsApp, they acquire WhatsApp for their technology, for their messaging platforms.
You think that there should be a place? I asked him, how much money do you want to make? He said, that's never the end. So I guess it's not the real question, but I would ask, should there be a place in our government as we watch these companies fold up these massive companies that have acquired 35 companies underneath them. How is that affecting our society, do you think? And being close to the space, and I can tell you care, you're in the level of actually acquisition and value. But some of these things just get swept under the rug, and it's like ripping out any ability to compete. I mean, it's like,
I don't think that you can't look at it that way, in my opinion. You can't look at, worried about getting copied or competition. Competition is good for everyone in the market.
sure.
Because it drives us all, and it makes us all want to be better than, our competition, in my opinion. So, I think, one thing I like is collaboration over competition. I'd much rather work with you than try to compete against you. We can all make more money in the long run, right? When you get to those big companies like that, obviously, a lot of times there's not going to be any collaboration because they're so big they don't have to have you, right? But it's always stuff like that is, if they like what you've got going on and they like what you're doing, hey, they're a future potential, customer, or a future potential place for you to sell when you get ready to exit. Those guys don't bother.
I think that my side is more or less I'm a capitalist. I believe in capitalism. It's totally cool. But at the end of the day, I think there's an interesting thing that there's a very thin line of this monopoly option that we have going on. And it's if it's a race to the top, the bigger your chips are, obviously you parlay a lot faster. And I could see in the middle ground as certain levels of financial assets grow and things. But when you get to a certain level, I don't have the answer. It's more or less open, just kind of a discussion, that you are getting to a place where any new technology is just acquired by the largest companies. So you don't have anybody that can kind of get their place. So the direction is just still under the one hammer, I guess you would say.
Right. I understand what you're saying, but for those guys are big guys, for guys like me who want to do the $1 to $20 million deals. Those are great guys because I've got a market that I can sell whatever product it is I buy. I've got a market I can sell it to.
Yeah.
Those guys are always acquiring smaller guys like us for our technology, for our, systems or processes. I think, it's just like everything else, it's what you make of it, right?
Sure.
If you look at them and get scared, then, they're a threat. If you look at them and say, well, hey, I can build something for them, or I can acquire 2 or 3 things, bundle them up and sell them off to them. I mean, it opens up a whole new world of opportunities.
So maybe the answer would be, if you were in the situation, would you do it? And the majority of people that end up in that situation would take action and do it. And the majority of people that aren't taking the action or doing the hard work, like you had mentioned earlier,
Right.
They're not positioned to make the decision. Do you think it's a fair adjustment to how people see those things?
Yeah, possibly. But I think, you are your own, you can create your own path. That's one of the great things about, our government, the way it's set up now. There are no restrictions on what you can do beside yourself. If you want to do it, you can go out there and do it. I mean, there's so much free education out there right now. I mean, you got YouTube, you got Facebook, Instagram, all that, but you got the internet. When I was 10, 12, 15, when the internet was just starting, we didn't have all that cool stuff. If you wanted to learn, you had to go out there and get your head beat in. It's not that way anymore.
Yeah. I think that your story tells a lot of cool stuff, man. I mean, I can tell that you put your head down, you paid attention, you made moves. And I think that what a lot of listeners will get from this is the parlay that you did. And you really kept parlaying. And I think that when you did it, you took risk. And I think that kind of put you in that position. Now, there came a moment where it sounds like the majority of the stuff you're doing always had a caring environment to it. I get the demeanor from you. Things aren't easy always, but I get that demeanor from you. And after that, when you decided to kind of go into this field of saying, look, we're going to bring people to help them kind of do it for themselves, what was that shift for you? Because that's a different business model, right? Because you are not, put it this way, you're not the manager in that environment. You're right. You're the opportunist, but you're not the manager. So you can't do it for.
Right. You know, with the guys and girls are, you know, mentees, a lot of times, you know, we offer a part of the program where, you know, we will put up some of the money, some of the capital, and buy into the business with them if it's a good deal, and, you know, be there with them consulting from a high level. Now, obviously, you know, if they buy a tire shop, I'm not going out there to change tires, right? You know, but at the end of the day, you know, we can consult from a high level, let them learn from our past mistakes, right? Which they're buying time at that point. You know, it was, you know, we started doing the consulting and the education, like I said, just to look for other operators, just to look for, you know, people that thought like us, people that really wanted to go to work. And I think that separates, you know, there is a small fee to come in and learn, you know, that separates the doers from the not doers. Mm-hmm. You know, they're the guys that just want to sit there on the couch and read and never take action. Those aren't the guys I'm after anyway, right? You know, I'm after the folks that want to go to work. Yeah.
And that, you know, I think that the ladder that you have there gives you your why, is what I'm kind of getting, is that there's a lot further that's there. And when you kind of did it for yourself, you kind of proved it, then you basically parlayed it. And then you went, well, wait a minute here, I have all this revenue, and for me to move the needle is a lot easier these days than it used to be, right? And so in that, it sounds like that's what you kind of parlayed. How do people, this has been fantastic, my friend. This has been a great podcast. I've enjoyed. I think that everybody's learned a lot about just acquisition mindset. And also the one thing that I thought you brought up really well was, you know, you did your due diligence, you slowed the ship down, and you said, look, is it worth it? You're willing to lose $120,000 to somebody who doesn't want to lose that in a year, but ultimately, it's a percentage of a portfolio. You're willing to take a risk, and the same people have revenues and portfolios. They can take their risk too.
Right.
How do people
calculated risk?
What? Say that again.
So it's all about calculated risk.
Calculated risk. So in that calculated risk, I think people would probably want to connect with you. Where is the best place to connect with you? How can they connect with you? How can they get involved with your events? And now that you're on Facebook, we're going to get them over there.
Yeah, for sure. So I've got the Facebook account under Michael Byars, and I've got a Instagram account under Michael Byars Investor.
That's BYARS.
Yep, correct. MICHAELBYARS.
Well, that's awesome, man. I think that this is incredible. If you're going to do some acquisitions, or you're going to be wanting to learn how to do acquisitions or partner with acquisitions, Michael's your dude. Thanks a lot, man. And thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. Move podcast.
Thanks, Jason.
If you like this episode, make sure you smash the like button and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just like Nike is to athletes, Moved is to entrepreneurs.